My friends, tonight we're gonna get dirty because I decided to try another approach to weathering. Again, I know. This time it's gonna be about finishing the lower hull and running gear as the very first thing. I saw it once in a magazine and I thought it looked pretty cool, so let's give it a shot, shall we? When it comes to mud, I always like to start with acrylic paste, and this time I wanna make a small comparison between AK and Wilder. Now, AK terrain paste is mainly designed for dioramas, which means it's gonna behave differently than a designated weathering paste. But what does it mean? It's very opaque, that's the very first thing I noticed. And while all acrylic products dry very fast, this one dries even faster. You'll have only a few seconds to blend it with tap water before it starts drying, at which point it's gonna leave a visible mark on the surface. All these properties make it perfect for tank tracks, like no doubts about it. More attention needs to be paid when you apply it on wheels, for example, especially if they're not going to be completely covered with mud. Another thing is how the blending water immediately absorbs the pigment from the paste and it leaves a visible dusty film, so to say. So if you want small places of mud on your model, it's better to work very carefully. The upside is that the packaging is huge and it's gonna last you for a very long time. And the texture itself is just beautiful. I think it looks very realistic. Wilder's Textured Earth is a long-time staple on this channel and most of us are familiar with its properties. It's easier to blend and it doesn't leave any residue, and as such I used it in places where you simply need smooth transitions, such as on the glazes or the rear plate. Alternative approach with AK mud would be to carefully stipple the paste without any blending and instead of a smooth blended transition create a jagged, random edges of the mud. Overall, I like both products. They each have their pros and cons and I'll keep using them in the future for sure. Next usual step in my process is pre-dusting with an airbrush. This time I made a grayish brown color mixed from Tamiya paints and diluted it with Tamiya lacquer thinner retarder type, which will make them dry slower and spray smoother. Pre-dusting has two main purposes: to smooth out the often messy appearance of acrylic mud and to create a nice foundation for weathering mediums of your choice, be it pigments, oil paints or enamels. In my opinion, it's also a very important step in terms of setting the tone of the whole weathering process. That's why mixing a specific dust tone is very important for me. It has to work with the model's base coat. As an example, a very light and desaturated color, let's say deck tan from Tamiya on a Panzer Grey tank might look like a worn down winter whitewash, because it have a desaturated, almost white looking dust color on a grey tank. There were a few small things which needed attention before I could proceed further. The tracks, for example, would look boring if I kept them like this, so I gave them a quick round of dry brushing with black-brown acrylic paint. Some of the paint would get caught on the textured mud, but that's okay, we'll cover it up. The inner side is made out of rubber blocks, and these surfaces always get cleaned up, at least to some extent, by road wheels. So if there's any portion of tracks that's not completely packed with mud, it's gonna be here. The most exposed parts always get polished on operational vehicles, so the cleats and guide horns need to be painted with a bright metallic color, in this case silver from AK. I did it later after the dry enamel tones were done, but it's better to do it at the early stages. And because I already mentioned road wheels, they also have rubber contact points which were painted with the same dark grey color. But now comes a plot twist. I didn't want the clean parts to look boring. In other words, I didn't want to skip other important steps such as chipping, for example. And there are other techniques which will be also visible. For example, a pin wash around the hub and bolts, and also rust effects. Long story short, I decided to take a break from mud and get the chipping out of the way on the entire model. I hope this video will make some kind of sense. So, as we might already know, the first important step consists of light superficial chips. I mixed a pale olive drab color from Russian uniform, buff and deck tan, because I don't have any pale olive drab paint in my stash. This layer will be done completely with a sponge, and this means unloading the paint on a piece of napkin until the sponge leaves just tiny specks of paint. This way of chipping your model is very fast and rather simple, but if you're working on a large model like this, it can still take you a couple of hours to get it done. Also, the results might look messy in some places, or in all places depending on who's judging, but it's perfectly fine because 1. The effect replicates all those minor scuffs in the paint, and there's always a lot of those on combat vehicles. And 2. A lot of it will get tidied up with brush chipping, not to mention how it's all gonna get toned down with dust and other techniques. And what's most important, it depends on the viewing distance. You can always take a step back and feel really good about your results. Sometimes I look at my models from the other side of the room to make myself feel better. The second layer needs to be more precise. Here I mixed 5 drops of dark rust from Vallejo Panzer Aces range with 3 drops of paint drying retarder from VMS and 1 drop of tap water for my tap. This is gonna give it the right consistency for brush application. I usually like to go with a medium or dark gray color for steel chipping because it works really well with enamel rust washes, but here I had to use a different color. Chipping must create strong contrast with the tank's base colors, otherwise it will be hard to tell them from one another, and here we have large spots of black, which I lightened up with different shades of gray. Now you can probably see what I'm saying. Gray steel chips on a gray base coat. That wouldn't be very cash money. So instead I went with dark rust, which not only provides enough contrast, but it's also actually a beautiful chipping color. I already mentioned how this is not a small model. In fact, this tank is even bigger than a Yak Tiger in 1/35th scale. And if you remember my Yak Tiger chipping video, I think it took about 40 or 50 hours to get it all done. Yeah, it needed a lot of time. This model didn't take that long, but it wasn't a quick one evening job like the Panzer II either. The sponge chipping was about 2 or 3 hours, and the steel chips, I'd say about 10 or 12. And while my original idea for this episode was to get the lower hull finished, I ended up finishing probably the 2 most time-consuming things on armor models: the multi-layered mud and multi-layered chipping. I don't know if this approach will make any sense in the end, or if it's gonna prove better than the other more traditional ones, but I just wanted to try it out and maybe someone will find it interesting. So the chipping is done, and the rest of this video will be focused on the lower hull and all the tasty mud effects. We'll get back to the upper surfaces in the upcoming videos. Yeah, because there's a ton of work that needs to be done here. Pin washes, rust washes, all the details and stowage need to be painted, exhaust needs some rust, and so on and so forth. So yeah, let's get back to the dirty stuff. The first layer will contain dried mud. For this purpose I mixed a similar color to the one I used for pre-dusting. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, some subtle color variation is always welcome. Earth tones always look better and more realistic if the model contains layers of dry, damp and wet mud. But that's just my opinion, because obviously it doesn't happen like that in real life. You can, for example, have a squeaky clean tank that goes out when it's raining and it'll be covered with wet mud and wet mud only. But this is where we try to combine realism with more aesthetically interesting effects. Yeah, or the way I like to put it, to present the model in the most ideal situation, which makes it interesting for us modelers. So the dry enamel mud is very important, even if it's not visible on the heavily pre-dusted portions. It's always the cleaner parts where it makes a difference. Blended enamel dust tones create much more realistic results than airbrush does. It's simple as that. The next layer is gonna be damp mud. Loose ground from ammo is one of my favorite colors for this effect because it's not too brown, neither too grey. It has just the right amount of everything. I focused this paint on the muddiest portions, mainly where the textured paste was previously applied. In order to blend it properly without damaging the previous layer, the dry mud needs at least 12 hours to properly dry. There's nothing more exciting than mashing those two colors into one gooey mess. Trust me, unless, of course, you're doing the so-called wet blending, which is done without waiting for the first paint to dry. This is also where we can do some speckling, especially the cleaner parts will look a lot better with some subtle texture. The lower hull is the same story, blending it around details and where the largest amounts of mud are concentrated, and here we can get more heavy-handed with mud splatters. A lot of the lower hull will be hidden behind wheels and tracks, and the rest will be kinda out of sight anyway, so more contrasting effects won't hurt it at all. Tracks need a slightly different approach. Here I'm mixing the loose ground paint with pigment texture from VMS, which will give it a ton of volume and, obviously, texture. Stippling is a more appropriate method than brushing and blending, because not only it's faster, but the results are much more authentic. My goal here is to make the mud look like packed in the tracks, you know? It's the kind of mud that gets torn out of the ground. There are still those parts which should remain clean, and these are easily taken care of with a paintbrush and enamel thinner. The final result is right around the corner at this point, but there's still one more, probably the most important element. Wet mud is the most fun part of the entire process. I mixed it from loose ground, dark colored enamel wash, which will make it darker than the previous layer, and a large amount of wet effects, or simply a clear enamel gloss. The resulting mixture will be dark, glossy and slightly translucent. The best part is that we can apply it like total savages, because the wet mixture will nicely blend in with the previous layers on its own. Partially because it's translucent and partially because the dry and damp mud layers will absorb it. As such, a one light pass won't be visible at all once the mixture dries. This gives us a lot of control over the final result. We can either, build it up slowly with multiple layers, or we can create subtle effects here and there, or we can apply it heavily and blend it in with the remaining surface using the speckling method. It's best to apply it over sections of damp mud. This way we'll end up with a nice color gradient of sorts. I'll try to explain it. So the largest surface is covered with the dry tone. This area is then filled with the damp mud, leaving the dry tones only on the outside, sort of like a outline, right? And finally, the most intense parts are covered with the wet, sloppy mud. This model will be placed on a very muddy ground, but painting the entire lower hull in just one or, two dark earth tones wouldn't really do it for me. Of course, doing it in these multiple steps isn't a quick job, at all. In fact, it takes quite a lot of time. But I think it's totally worth the effort, because the result isn't going to be just one of those, yeah, it's very muddy, nothing special to see here. But instead, there's actually gonna be a lot to observe, and I think that's beautiful. The only thing that always makes me sad is how a lot of it will stay completely out of sight. I guess if you're a huge fan of multiple layers of mud, then your best bet is to build a World War I tank like a Mark IV or a Whippet, because then you can weather about 70% of the mud like this. Same with the tracks, most of them are gonna be hidden under mud guards, and the most visible part is gonna be the inner side. The only clearly visible thing are gonna be wheels, which in this case are probably the most boring part. But hey, it's all the small details that pay off in the end, especially when someone wants to take a moment to look closer at your model. So, I guess that's gonna be it. I hope you enjoyed this little excursion into my passion for mud and dirt. I know it must look weird to have a finished lower hull on a tank which otherwise has zero weathering, but like I said, I saw it in a magazine and it looked pretty interesting and I just wanted to try it out. Another thing is, and this might be interesting, you know how the lower hull weathering often sets the tone for the entire model. After all, I had to go back and add more effects on the model when I added the tracks and wheels, such as on the Yak Tiger or the Roocher, the Tiger. There were a few of those. So maybe I won't have to do that now. We'll see. So that's what we're gonna take care of in the next video. It's all gonna be about the upper hull and turret. So if you like what you saw, then leave me a like or a dislike if you didn't like it. As always, thank you for watching. And as always, thank you to my patrons, aka sponsors of this show. And let me tell you a small secret now, just between the two of us. I'm very active on Patreon. I post there almost every single day. And as you can imagine, I'm working ahead of my video upload schedule. So you might be able to see in the future. But that's not all, I also post 1 week early ad-free videos there, so you can see even further in the future. 1 week in fact. And there are also DMs so we can get in touch, and also these nice studio photos which you can download in full resolution and keep them, I don't know, as your own personal reference for your models or whatever you like. This video series is gonna be longer than the 2 previous ones, so I hope you'll be okay with that. It's a huge model with several details which need a lot of attention, so it's really not possible for me to get it done in like 2 weeks or so. But at least I hope the result will be worth it in the end. Anyway, that's all I have for you this week, so thanks again my friends, stay safe, stay awesome, have fun, and I'll see you again the next week. Cheers!